this recording, we shall discuss about one more comprehension passage, and this is an excerpt taken from a short story named First. Okay, so previously we have seen how the excerpts from other kinds of essays or write-ups will read like, but this is an excerpt from taken from the short story by the title First. Okay, so we shall try reading this excerpt. Okay, and try to answer the questions which follow of this the questions which follow after reading the passage, the excerpt which is derived from the short story First. Okay, so let us have a quick reading of this derivation of a short story. It begins like this. Okay, it's written in first person, and it begins as follows. First, you ought to know that I am only 14. My mother points this out frequently. I can make decisions for myself when I am old enough to vote, she says. Second, I should tell you that she is right. I am not always responsible. I sometimes take the prize for a grade A dog. Last weekend, for instance, when I was staying at Dad's, I decided it was time I learned to drive. It was Sunday morning, 7 a.m. to be exact, and I hadn't slept well. Thinking about this argument, I'll be telling you about in a minute. Nobody was up yet in the neighborhood, and I thought there would be no harm in backing the car out of the garage and cruising around the block. But Dad has a clutch car, and the R on the shift handle was up on the left side, awful close to first gear, and I guess you can guess the rest. Dad has always been understanding. He didn't say, like Mom would, okay, little miss know it all, you can just spend the rest of the year paying this off. He worried about what might have happened to me, you see, and that made me feel more guilty than anything. Overall, I just think he would be a better number one caregiver, if you get my drift. Of course, I can't say things like that to Mom. To her, I have to say, but Mom, Dad's place is closer to school. I could ride my bike. She replies, Jennifer Lynn, you don't own a bike because you left it in the yard and it was stolen. And you haven't got the perseverance it takes to do a little work and earn the money to replace it. Okay, this is the excerpt taken from the short story First. Okay, now let us have a look at the questions which are posed here, which are supposed to be answered after reading the passage. Okay, the first question here is, on what point does the narrator agree with her mother? Okay, so when you read the initial part of the passage, we had read this point, right, that she agrees with her mother when her mother says that she is not always responsible. Okay, so on this point she agrees with the mother. And what about the rest of the passage? that it looks like she is a dad's girl, and she does not approve much of what her mother speaks, and tries to tell it to her, that is to act in a more responsible manner. So this write up sounds more or less like the typical teenage write up, um, where the girl here that is kind of is does not like, okay, she does not like being questioned and being criticized and being taunted for being irresponsible. Okay, so it looks like the typical adolescent mindset, the typical teenage frustration and anger of the age, with parents especially. Okay, so the second question here posed is, which card did the narrator's dad have? Okay, so you have the answer that in the middle of the passage. Okay, this the passage with a single paragraph, and right in the middle there is this answer that her dad had a clutch car where the letter R was on the shift handle. Okay, then the next question here is, what made the narrator guiltier? Why did she feel guilty after banging her dad's car Sunday morning 7 a.m.? Why did she feel guiltier? Because more than what happened to the car, he was more concerned regarding what happened to the speaker, what happened to the girl, right, of the story. Okay, so he was more worried about his daughter than his car. So this makes her feel more guiltier that she has actually kind of done this awful thing with her dad's car. Okay, then the next question that comes along the way here is that why did Lynn's mother want her to work and earn money? Okay, and towards the end of the passage you can learn the answer for this question, that she had lost her bike by leaving it in the yard. And how did she lose it? The bike was stolen, right? So the answer is, her mother wanted her to kind of earn money of her own so that she can save little money and buy a new bike, as the older bike was left by Lynn in the park, in the yard, and the bike was stolen. So her mother wanted her to earn money of her own and buy a new bike for herself. Okay, so the fifth question we have here is, what device does the author use to illustrate the narrator's feelings about her mother and father? Okay, as and when we read the passage, you can make out clearly that the author shares different opinions towards her mother and father. So this is a kind of multiple choice question. So the first option is vivid and specific visual detail. Second option is rhetorical questions which make a point but don't invite a direct answer. Okay, then the third point is metaphors and other figurative language. Then the fourth point is contrast between the parents' typical reactions. Okay, so you can tick the most appropriate option and write it down as whichever you feel is the correct answer in your answer sheets. But at the same time, it so happens that in multiple choice questions, um, sometimes it may not have to be single correct answer. Okay, there could also be one or more than one options. Preferably there should be one answer to even the multiple choice question, but there are chances, there is nothing wrong if you choose more than one appropriate option. So here it looks like option 4 is the most appropriate one, that contrast between parents' typical reactions. Okay, because she indeed brings in the direct comparison, right? How her mother would have reacted to what she has done with her dad's car. Okay, so keeping that in mind, the fourth option here looks the most appropriate one, and even the first point, that vivid and specific visual detail, right? The way she is describing, the details are very minute and very vivid and very specific also, indeed, right? Then visual detail, the way she is explaining, it's kind of bringing the actual picture of the car accident and the way her mother is conversing with this teenage daughter of hers. So both could be the appropriate options, but the most appropriate looks like the fourth option, which is stated as contrast between the parents' typical reactions. Okay, so this one more way in which a short story could also be used in comprehension passages to hone your skills of comprehending things. Okay, here you are honing your skills to comprehend a visually vivid excerpt taken from the short story first.